You're listening to Oh My Health, There Is Hope podcast.
When your heart is aching and your world is shaking, don't give up. No, don't give up.
Hello and welcome to Oh My Health, There Is Hope podcast. I'm your host, Jana Short, and today our very special guest is Dr. Mitrani. Dr. Mitrani is a Chief Science Officer and co-founder of Organicell Regenerative Medicine, Incorporated, and also co-founded the American Cellular and Anti-Aging Center in Ecuador. I could not say the city in Ecuador. Can you say that for me?
Quito.
Quito?
Okay, Ecuador.
I wanted to make sure I didn't miss that. So Ecuador is a big place. Her background in international aid to underprivileged and underserved people shows her dedication to finding natural treatments for health issues affecting people who may not have access to typical Western facilities. She has been featured on television in South America offering weight loss treatments. Dr. Mitrani has also been published internationally, and her multi-language ability broadens the population she can support. I found her on social media and then sort of cyber stalked her to get her on the podcast and hopefully in the magazine. But thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you so much for having me today. I am so grateful that you cyber stalked me because I've made so many amazing connections through social media, specifically in Instagram that I'm active. I've got to connect with so many specialists that are doing and pushing the agenda of the want to get people to feel better. So
I agree, because you should be thriving in this beautiful life, not just existing. And so the key to that is really being aware of what's going on in our bodies and taking care of them. One of the things we ask all of our guests to do is to share a story of hope. Do you want to do that for us, please?
Yeah, of course. Well, the first thing that comes to mind right now is we've been treating different stages of COVID infection. But the post-COVID infection or the long haulers, it's been a bracket of patients that have been kind of forgotten because the main let's say pharmaceuticals or the people that are behind looking for answers for COVID have been really strategizing in prevention. And the therapeutic has started, but it has started for COVID infection itself. But now we know that there's a big bracket of people that have the long hauler or long COVID who had COVID, but they still remain with some symptoms. And we are actively looking for a trial to start. We're working with FDA right now to get that group of patients studied and hopefully have an answer for them. So that is my story of hope. We are working really hard on looking how to treat and how to better improve the quality of life of those patients that if it was not for COVID, they were thriving, right? There's a lot of young people that still cannot get out of bed, and so many stories that are so devastating, and know that we are here, the scientists are here looking for solutions.
So that is a beautiful story of hope and one everyone really needs to hear right now. In the States right now, I feel like we're on an upswing, but what we don't realize is that those things go out and mutate and change, and it's another battlefield, right, that we have to approach. So I love that you guys are getting ahead of the game.
Yeah, so it is what the virus leaves. It does not matter what kind of mutation the virus has, but nevertheless, is once this infection sets in and the immune system reacts, it can leave long-lasting problems. And that is what we're focusing on. And it's a group of people that need to be reassured that the medical and scientific community, we are looking for answers. So that is the first thing that came to mind when you asked for hope. I feel like there is hope.
There is, and right now that's what people are needing to hear. So Dr. Mitrani, tell us a little bit about what you do, because I find it so fascinating. I love science. I belong to a group that's called and it's the F word, love science, because I just love it.
Yeah, it's so fascinating. Science is so big, and we can go for hours about it. But I work specifically in regenerative medicine, and I am the chief science officer of a publicly traded regenerative medicine company. And we've been working with regenerative medicine. Well, me personally, I come from a family of physicians in Ecuador that have been working with natural medicine and natural approaches and preventative medicine for 45 years. So I was like, I come from that little household that always has put preventative medicine first, nutrition first, right? So I grew up having these big building blocks that knew exactly how to do things before we get sick, right? But then I took it one step further, and we've been working with stem cells and different aspects of stem cells to now where we are now is we're working with the messengers of those stem cells called exosomes. It's a little complicated, but not too much, because the way that stem cells and all the cells communicate with each other is through these lipid bubbles that have information inside. And the information inside is either microRNA, messenger RNA, enzymes, or proteins. And that tells one cell to the other what's happening, or what to do best, or how to adapt best, or if there is something going on in the environment. So it is the latest trend where regenerative medicine is going to just understanding what these messages are. And if we take the message from a very primitive regenerative cell, we can actually amplify that message in our older self. So it's all about understanding that message. So this year, through COVID, we've understand messenger RNA because we have two vaccines that are the new vaccines, right? So it is not the DNA. It does not contain the information of the entire cell, but just a small snippet of information of a protein. That is what the messenger RNA. So then we are working with a even smaller snippet of RNA, which is the microRNA. So we are talking about nano-size proteins and structures that can actually give a correct information for regeneration.
I love that. For Dr. Mitrani, for those who are listening who are not really sure what regenerative medicine is, do you want to break that down for them? Because some people think it's just for old people who are getting old, and they are for if you're sick, you regenerate something. And I would love for them to have a clear understanding of exactly what that means.
Yeah, so regenerative medicine is the branch of medicine that studies how to better regenerate, even though it's the same word, but cells, tissues, and organs that have been either they're aging or that they went through a trauma. So the smallest and simplest step of regeneration, our bodies throughout all of our life have the ability to regenerate themselves. So when we cut ourselves, there are cells right there that stop the bleeding, and then that they will patch again and redo that skin. Just to give you the most slimmest, simplest example, right? But there are through aging, some tissues and organs start not acting the same way as they were when we were 20, 15, right? When our bodies are super young and thriving, and all of our cells have many cells that regenerate. But that is our biological clock that ages, right? And as you were mentioning, yes, most of the older generations do not have that ability to maintain that interchange of cells and tissue so fresh. And those are the ones that are in pain and throughout the accumulation of all of the toxicity that you put from what you eat, what you drink, where we're breathing, your body keeps accumulating all of that. And then therefore, some cells just stop working the way they were. So there is this branch of medicine that actually focuses on a way to give the message back to your cells so they can remember what they were supposed to do, or create new cells that can jumpstart that new reaction. And it can be, as I mentioned, it can be from aging, or it can be from you got into an accident and those tissues do not remember, and there's a scar, a fibrotic scar that you can, let's say, inject, and it starts growing again. So I'm trying to be as simple as possible, but we are studying right now, as I mentioned, COVID-19 with lung injury, where we are seeing, or we're testing our product to see how much can the lung injury that is left can regenerate. Right? We're working with COPD, and all of our preclinical data has shown that our product actually can revert that. It's a degenerative progression of the lung dying. So we're extremely excited on the lung injury aspect, but also we're studying osteoarthritis of the knee, which is very common, not only in adults, but in younger people after getting accidents or doing some kind of exercises where they lose that space that's between the joints, and therefore there's a lot of pain. So there is that is exactly what we're working on, to see how much can the correct information be put in a specific place for those cells, for those tissues to wake up again and start working better.
I am fascinated. I just turned 60, and I'm a firm believer that we are not supposed to live forever. That's just not the way it goes. But I also am a firm believer that when we are living, we should be living, right? And thriving in our lifestyle. So what you're doing is really opening up the doors to us doing more in our 80s and our 90s, right? I see people who are in those ages that I'm like, what? And they're doing so much, like they're out running, they're not what I grew up with years ago. So I definitely see change coming. And when you were talking about regenerate, the work you're doing for the lungs for COVID, that really opens door too for people who've had bouts of pneumonia, or smokers, long-term smokers who have quit and want to start giving their lungs back a chance to start regenerating and regrowing.
Well, that is COPD is right now the third leading cause of one of the major problems that US has. They are anticipated in the next decade or so, it will be the number one. So, and smoking is extremely tied with that. Unfortunately, when you're smoking right now, if you're smoking and you don't feel anything, it's not that right now you have the problem, is that as you age, those cells got so affected with so many of those toxins that are carcinogenic, that are they build up. Those cells just say, I'm done. I don't want to work anymore today. And unfortunately, there's no solution for COPD. So our product is really looking to see how much can we improve to improve the quality of life of the patient. I am not here to say that we are trying to solve and we're going to find a 100% solution and we're going to rebuild the lungs, because that is not realistic. But improving the quality of life of those patients that are dependent on oxygen, and if it was not for the lungs, they must be somehow good, right? In an earlier age. Imagine, look how you look, how you're vibing, and you're 60. You do not look like your normal 60-year-old, and you're setting up goals for all of us. I mean, I'm about to turn 41, and I want to keep doing whatever I'm doing to look like you when I'm 60.
Thank you. Honestly, if it wasn't for a big health scare that I had 10 years ago, I probably would look like everybody 60-year-old. But I honestly I got so excited about science. I started looking into holistic options, because I feel like holistic is a way to keep you well and thriving. And medicine is amazing for treating things when things do happen. And so the longer I can stay healthy and well, the happier I am. We've talked a lot today about stem cell, and there's still a stigma around stem cell. And I am so excited that we found that cell that can create new things and change our world, and what we're going to be doing with it in the next decades is phenomenal to me. Can you help maybe remove a little of that stigma behind stem cells?
Yes, thank you so much for asking, because I think that is the biggest problem that our industry faces. That stigma that was built, I would say, from a political stand through the Bush administration, that that all the red flags were like open because IVF, the in vitro fertilization, right? When they were creating eggs that were fertilized, right? Those eggs that are fertilized, usually you have 20 to 30 eggs, right? And they're viable for 5 years. So after 5 years, you should discard those eggs because they're not going to be as good as if you implant them right now. So a lot of families get the babies implanted. Some pregnancies went through, some pregnancies didn't, so they used more eggs. And eventually, at one point, you hit the 5 years, and the physician tells the couple, you know, it's time to discard the eggs. Back then, they started saying either you discard it or you donate it for science, right? But those were potential human beings if they would stick and, you know, carry on a pregnancy. So that's where the stigma was created, that scientists started using those eggs and started experimenting on those eggs, right? And back then, we did not know that there's other forms of stem cells. So everybody was put into that category. Yes, I do agree 100% that there is an ethical, moral issue when you are investigating with such a primitive state of a stem cell. So stem cells can be so primitive as a cumulus of cells that can create a human, but it also is, they also are stem cells that can just create certain tissues, or all of us as adults have stem cells that regenerate our bodies in a daily basis. So there's many other aspects, avenues, and forms of stem cells that do not need to be used from aborted fetuses. That's the first word that comes from everybody's mouth. Once you said the word stem cells, I always face these two scenarios. They either say, oh, you're killing babies, or, oh, that's so awesome. There's no in between. So I am so happy that I'm here, that I have a platform to be able to share that most of the science right now, I would say 99% of all of the world, is not killing any baby to study with stem cells. I know that China has a very advanced project because China was never shut down in the investigation of stem cells. And they do, it's not that they study on aborted fetus cells, but they do study on embryonic so early on as the ones that brought all of this crazy needs, or like a cloud over the word stem cells. So know that there are companies that are following all FDA regulations, and that you know, we are working with the best tissue quality just to maintain everything that there's out there in regulatory without harming absolutely anybody.
Are they collecting stem cells now? I thought I read this, but are they collecting stem cells now from like the uterus when the babies are born, the placentas?
Yeah, so that is called perinatal tissue. Is the tissue that's between the mom and the baby. So it's a tissue that does not have the identity of mom or baby, and that lets that baby, which is a complete different universe, stay inside of mom without the mom rejecting it. It's this tissue that is human, but it's not, that has not have the identity of any of both of them. And it makes the perfect tissue for donation. So I always say, think about like when you go donate your blood, right? Or when you have a family member that you're a match and you donate a kidney, for example. This is exactly the same, only in planned C-sections done in an OR where they qualify the donor to be a healthy donor, where the donor has been screened for everything. It's a healthy tissue that usually goes to the garbage. It's medical waste. So now we're able to collect either stem cells or other parts. We get to learn that not only stem cells are regenerative, there's other cells in that area in the perinatal tissue that are extremely regenerative as well. So the world of, as you were saying, science just keeps evolving and adding into understanding how powerful cells can be, and cells that are this immature but mature, because it's already a baby that's being born. So you've completed a healthy pregnancy, and if not, it was going into the garbage, but it had everything to create a perfect baby and have the environment of a perfect baby. And therefore, if extracted, you can create new drugs, which is what we are working on.
I love it. We talk about ripple effects on this show all the time. And I believe the ripple effect, when stem cells really start changing the way things are in our health industry, that my grandkids, maybe not my lifetime, but my grandkids are going to have a whole other opportunity because of the work you're doing. So I'm so grateful for all of that. A little bit of, is that kind of what the Organicell is all about, the regenerative medicine?
Yeah, Organicell came from the organic and cell. That is what we blended into the name of the company, right? Because it's organic, it's natural. There's nothing more natural than this. It's not a bunch of chemicals being put together. It's just utilizing what Mother Nature and the universe has given to us. I say that this tissue that is between the mom and the baby is like a perfect like petri dish, where this baby is being held and nurtured with everything that it needs. It doesn't matter where is mom from, what is mom eating. This perinatal tissue makes sure that every single baby is fed correctly at every given point. Even if it has to take from mom away all of the nutrients, it will ensure that this baby is perfect. And that's just how nature is. I mean, this is the billions of years that we've been in Earth and surviving as a species that have made mammals, us, one of the mammals that we sometimes forget, that we are animals too. So that we are perfect, that we're designed perfect, and that we have the ability to regenerate.
I love it. By the way, I used to call my kids my little parasites, because that's exactly what they are when they're growing. They're like a little parasite, but I love every single one of them. So I think that is super fascinating. Everything that we've been talking about, this show has been amazing. One of the other things I wanted to ask you is in stem cells and regenerative medicine, it's not new, basically. It's old stuff we're using and finding new things about. But how do you remove the stigma from people and the fears? So let's just do the COVID vaccine. I don't know about where you're at, but where we're at, people are still not getting it. They're fearful of it. And I will say, I was absolutely fearful of it too, but I weighed my responsibility to others to be vaccinated, what medical facility I have if I had a reaction or something, and I chose to get it. And so I would tell all of you who are listening, who are fearful, do that. Like, I don't get any vaccines. I don't do flu shots. I don't do any of that. But this was different. I had a responsibility to the people I come in contact with. And I wanted to make sure that I was keeping myself safe, but also keeping others safe. And that was my choice. But what would you say to people who are afraid of all this new stuff? Because that's where you get your flack, is out of fear, when you're going in and creating new things.
Yes, I mean, I would say that the science, thank God we are in 2021 and we are able to run trials that are so big that we've tested the drug. First and foremost, that this drug was not created, or this vaccine new trend was not created just the day that the virus was discovered. This is over 10 years that messenger RNA was being developed as a therapeutic or a preventative, and that it is not new, that it has been tested before, which I think that is one of the biggest misconceptions that people have, that this is so new, we are all the new guinea pigs, right? Yes, it's a new therapeutic, but it has been tested for 10 years. And second, just listen to the science. Nobody's getting paid when the science actually is showing you the data. Us in the front lines that have seen how devastating the virus is, we are the first in the line to get that shot, because it's so freaking difficult until it does not happen to you. And believe me, I am so verbal about it, so vocal about it, so open. I've opened my platform to make sure that I answer as many questions as I can. I know so many physicians have during this pandemic because the misinformation has outweighed the actual information, which is it's so scary. So even my cousin that is really close to me and has heard everything that I've said, she went to Spain and got COVID, and she was like, I cannot believe how bad I'm feeling, and everything that they say, it's right. And I did not hear. I thought that because I'm young and I was doing IV vitamin drips, I was going to write it off really good if I ever contract it. And here I am, miserable, really bad. I've never felt like this in my life. And I'm like, it's really until you feel it in your skin and you know a family member that you've lost. And us, the healthcare providers, we've lost so many colleagues for being in the front line that they should be here and they're not. And knowing that your loved ones or you will end up in the hospital, nobody else can come in with you, and you die by yourself, only with a tablet in front of you, if there's one available, to say your goodbyes. Until you don't experience that in your own skin, I don't think people get the whole picture. And knowing that we are so fortunate to live in a first world country where vaccines roll out were so amazing that you can go to anywhere to get it, and then help not spread, and then help revert these crazy numbers that were out there. I think it's our duty to as a human, because we should be always collectively pushing for our good, you know, as a collective, not as an individual. And I think that's what's missing. But I think the entire medical and scientific community is open to answer all the questions. So just look a little bit and you will find the answers. That nobody's lying to you. That the answers are there and are right in front of your face.
Dr. Mitrani, when they have a questionnaire before you have the exam and you click off the boxes, you know, asking if you have drug allergies, have you had reactions, do you have a bleeding issue? Literally, I checked the box for I had every one of those, right? And so I had mine done. My doctor says you still should have it done, but let's do it in the hospital so we can monitor you for, you know, an hour and make sure. I had no problems, no symptoms, no problems. And I marked the red flag in every box. And everyone, we're all zebras, right? Every zebra is different. So definitely should talk to your doctor. But I too was fearful, but I knew that it was my responsibility as a member of this community to protect others if I were to get sick and contract this, as well as myself. And I like myself. I don't want to be sick. So I did my research. And I pushed past my fear. And when I was checking those boxes, I was terrified. My husband's a doctor. I made him come with me to get my shot like a little girl. He took me out for ice cream afterwards. But it was easy. Nothing happened. I feel silly about being so stressed over it now.
Yeah, because it's new, you know, but none of us expected a pandemic. None of us expected to be locked down like we are. And so many of our realities have changed. It's mental health. It's awful. But you know what? It is the reality that we had to face as humans in planet Earth, because every single part of this planet has been affected with this virus. And we should all do something to progress and get rid of this in the fastest way, right? And it's 2021 and we have the ability of doing that. And still, even though CDC recommended all of the fully vaccinated, still when you are gathered, wear your masks, wash your hands. It's not much to us, believe me. It's the minimal we could ask to stop the spread.
I have just loved this talk. Where can people connect with you?
So I am actively, as I mentioned, social media. I do a lot of people that reach out. I'm always available to answer any questions. On Instagram, my name, Dr Mitrani. But the company is growing. So Organicell.com is where you can find all the information about the company that I'm working for. And that would be it. If there's any, I know there's physicians out there that are interested in collaborating on trials. You can find my LinkedIn also, Dr Mitrani. I keep it simple. That's where you can find me.
Well, we're going to put all those links in the show notes. You guys will be able to connect with her super easy. And by the way, that's how I met her on Instagram, and she does answer her DMs. And so once I saw what she was doing to change the world, I really wanted to connect with her. So thank you so much for being on with us today.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you for having me, Jana.
Thanks for listening to the Oh My Health, There Is Hope podcast. Make sure to visit Jana's website, bestholisticlife.com, where you can subscribe to the show on iTunes, Google Play, or listen there, so you'll never miss an episode. While you're at it, if you found value in the show, we'd appreciate a rating on iTunes, or if you simply tell a friend about the show, that'll help too. Let's change the world together, one health expert at a time. Looking forward to seeing you next time.